Welcome. I am Dr. Susan Swayze, and I am delighted to be one of Global-Minded's STEM equity leaders for these monthly events. Global-Minded creates a capable, diverse talent pipeline by getting more women, first gen to college, and poverty-affected students into the education, economic mobility, and leadership pipelines by connecting them to role models, mentors, internships, and jobs. We do this through monthly equity events like this today in STEM, higher ed, K-12, tech, and health. Through our daily newsletter that features stories of heroes we have who have beat the odds in college programs at the HBCUs, HSIs, and tribal colleges. On November 4th, we will hold our first satellite event at Georgia Tech, where I will be with other global-minded STEM and tech leaders. Here is our flyer. We hope you and your colleagues can join us to meet these esteemed STEM luminaries in person. If you can't come in person, we are fortunate to have WABE, the PBS affiliate in Atlanta, live streaming the event anywhere in the country. Saleh will put the flyer with the sign-up link in the chat, and we will send it to you afterwards with the link to today's session. Now, it is my pleasure to introduce our panel leader, Dr. Steve Efe, Assistant Professor, Department of Civil Engineering at Morgan State University, whom I had the pleasure of meeting in Denver in June. Dr. Efe's interests include educational research, which is dear to my heart, adaptive materials and construction technologies, high-performance material testing, and computational mechanics. Steve's education research is geared toward improving competitive advantages for minority engineering students. He is a PI for the E4USA Plus FIRST program, working to democratize engineering education, and he has worked with Global-Minded on an NSF Includes grant. Dr. Efe is also a PI for projects such as developing transportation engineers for industry and autonomous robotic system for damage detection, both aiming to prepare a future workforce in the transportation field. Over to you, Dr. Efe.
All right, thank you for the introduction. Today, I have the honor of introducing the panel. First of all, my name is Steve Efe, and I'm with Morgan State University. Just like she said, I'm the principal investigator for the National Science Foundation grants titled Increasing the Representation of Minorities in Engineering and Minority for Advancement and Participation. Today, I have the honor of introducing the panel on breaking the barriers in STEM or engineering field. So I would have our panelists do a very quick introduction of themselves. We can start with Dr. All.
Hi, everybody. I'm Dr. Hall. I'm doing a postdoc at Morgan State University with Dr. Efe with increasing underrepresented groups in STEM. Adjunct at Texas Southern University in the engineering department. And I received my PhD in electrical engineering from Jackson State University. So I am HBCU proud.
Kimera, please.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kamara Peterson. I currently work for Federal Highway Administration in Eastern Federal Lands as a civil structural engineer. I attended Morgan State University and got my master's in structural engineering there. And I was one of Dr. Efe's students.
Very good. All right, let's go to the next doctor or doctor to be, Janelle, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Janelle Mason. I'm a PhD candidate in computer science at North Carolina Agricultural and Technical State University. And I pursued my master's of science in computer science at North Carolina A&T State University as well as my BS, or Bachelor of Science. And I'm excited to bring and share my experience in the field of cybersecurity. Thank you.
Awesome. So we are honored to have this panel. And with that, we are happy to ask questions. So to the panelists, I want to ask you, how did you get into the STEM field? Can you share a little bit of your background and how you got into the field of STEM? All right, let's start with Dr. Hall.
Okay, when I was in, you want to know undergrad? Well, my undergrad is in engineering, and I just always had a love for computers. So I went in computer engineering and ended up doing electrical engineering because it's a more broad discipline. After that, I went to work as an RF engineer for a telecommunications company, did that for several years. And so getting into STEM, just a little background on kind of what we're talking about with our barriers. Pretty much only Black female undergrad, grad school, and definitely once I got into the industry, I was the only Black and the only female in the engineering department. So for that company, and still now as an adjunct in engineering, I'm the only Black female in the engineering department, which is kind of crazy because I'm at a HBCU, but yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Hall. Kimera, please.
Okay, so how I got interested in STEM was just being a kid, taking apart anything I could around the house, whether it was my piano I got for Christmas, or my dad works in computer science, so he would bring home desktops and let me just take things apart. I just really wanted to know how things worked, and once my parents kind of saw that in me, they started to put me in, camps and different things. And so, that was the path to kind of get here. And just as Dr. Hall shared, just being one of the far and few women and Black women in STEM was definitely my experience in undergrad. And, even in grad school to a degree, even at Morgan being at HBCU, I remember most of my classes only had 2 women of color in it, and we were the only 2 women in that class. So yeah, that is my experience.
Dr. F.A. may ask, Kimera, now that you're working in the industry, are you still seeing that?
So in Eastern Federal Lands, I work for the Bridge Group, and there are many different groups in Eastern Federal Lands, but in my group specifically, there are 4 women, 3 are women of color, and I am the only African-American woman.
All right, Janelle.
Yeah, so prior to undergrad, I had experience to the STEM environments through, I guess I would go back as far as my passion for math, music, as well as sports. So in high school, I had an opportunity, I really just had opportunities that exposed me to either robotics or some type of programming. And this is from elementary on. So in elementary school through 12th grade, I was pretty much the only Black female in my grade. So I kind of had that experience early. And then in undergrad, I had an opportunity. Well, I was actually admitted as an electrical engineer. However, in high school, I had the opportunity to take some programming courses, computer programming courses, and the teacher kind of directed me to pursue computer science. And so I was committed to pursuing computer science. So I switched my track, and that's how I got into the space or the realm of computer science. And I have had the opportunity to work for the federal government, supporting the Navy. And during my time at supporting the Navy in the role of cybersecurity, I was the only Black female who was at that time testing and securing networks, doing what I was doing. And I know that things have changed since coming back to school. And so there are more women of color and African-American women who are in the space now.
Awesome. It's good to know that, you are one of those that were able to break the barriers. So talking about breaking barriers to participation in engineering and of course, broadening the participation in the field of STEM. There is a study that was done by the National Center for Education Statistics in 2010 that revealed that some students whose parents had completed high school, just 54% got to enroll in college immediately after graduation. What that means is that we need to broaden the field. We need to broaden the participation. So that takes us to the question, how did you kind of get ready for college? So how did you prepare yourself, or what are the those means that got you to be academically and well prepared for college? Can the panel share their view, please? Janelle.
Okay, so in terms of preparation for college, my parents are college graduates, and so they knew that my brother and I would be college graduates as well. But when I was in second grade, I was participating in a program that was called the Saturday Academy program, and it was through the University of Virginia with the focus in the African American Studies department. So the dean created a program, or through funding, there was a program that was created for African Americans to prepare them for college as early as elementary school. So I was learning calculus, chemistry, and a bit about African American history. But we were taking SAT prep courses. So for preparing us for standardized testing, so that we'd have strong math skills, and also in terms of writing, and also to be culturally aware. So that was something that was a pillar in our household, is that you were going to be educated, and whichever discipline you chose based on, like which skills and what you wanted to do, that was our decision as children. But in terms of if we were going to college or not, that wasn't a question. It was more of when you turned 18 or 17 or 18, you just need to know where you're going.
Kimera, please.
Yeah, I share the same sentiment as Janelle. College wasn't an option. All my siblings have attended. So it was a thing of my parents, as far as back as I can remember, you're going to college. So by the time we graduated, it was definitely, what are your options? What do you want to do? And my parents were also a firm believer in holding us to our word. So I remember being in, I want to say 4th or 5th grade, and telling my mom I was going to be an engineer and I was going to get my PhD. The PhD hasn't happened yet. She's still holding me to that. But when they find out that we have a goal, they are, doing everything they can to support us through that. And in terms of preparing for college, school was always, I liked school growing up. You know, I wasn't the kid who faked sick so they can stay home. I didn't want to get sick because I wanted to go to school. So in my senior year, I actually had the opportunity to be dually enrolled and concurrently enrolled in college. So integrating college classes into my senior year with everything else I had going on was actually kind of a buffer or a, you know, first glimpse of what college would actually be like. So that transition wasn't as hard.
Dr. Hall, please.
That's good you guys had that experience with your parents. I mean, I'm a little older, so that wasn't my experience. I come from the generation where my parents were still working and trying to get everything, you know, culturally understood and accepted. So when I got to an age for college, it was, you're 18, what are you gonna do? It was all up to me to decide. I looked for colleges, I did my applications, I got accepted. I was pretty much on my own. By the time it got to a point where my parents got involved, it was just like, I'm going here, I need this much, can you take me? That was their involvement. But now that I'm a parent myself of a college student, he gets the support that you guys are getting, which is very, very important when you're talking about STEM, because it can be very challenging disciplines. And if you don't have that support, then I think that's one of the reasons why, when we're talking about barriers, one of the reasons why there's very few of us speaking female Blacks, because we don't have that encouragement early on. Like Janelle, I mean, good grief, the college preparatory course, I mean, classes or system that you were in, we need more of that so we can prepare and have that connection for our students moving forward. You've been given such a foundation for you to actually excel. And if more had that, I don't think we would have these conversations about increasing participation. I think it would be a given.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Hall. I'm glad that you mentioned something about you being a fourth generation college student. It's important for us to understand that a lot of students at the pre-K level are from low-income families, and sometimes they attend low-performing schools. So that takes me to the question, for those type of students, how can they surmount the challenges that they will face coming from that low-income background? And of course, knowing that those schools that they are attending are not preparing them for college experience. So what are the advice that you have for them?
I just want to clarify, I'm not a first gen college student. My mom would, but I can't even count. I'm the 8th of 9 children. Yeah, I was not a concern when college came around. But yeah, back to, again, Janelle's story. So it's really not on the student, I don't think personally, the student to prepare. I think it's on us, institutions, to make these resources accessible to them, even when they're coming from lower income backgrounds. We've already established those type of socioeconomic statuses and how they play a part in who is interested, who is exposed to going to college. We've already established that as a culture, as institutions, we know that. So we have to really develop the resources to address those different barriers that those students are going to face. And I think that's one of the things that institutions really don't do. We have a unique, when I say we, I mean institutions, a unique responsibility and opportunity to create those transformative environments for those type of students. We know that familial and cultural lack of support can cause a disconnect when you're trying to branch out and go to different areas that you don't get that particular support in. We know that lack of exposure in that primary and secondary education can cause a disconnect. We know all of these things. So as institutions, what are we going to do? Because pretty much the students are probably fish out of water If we don't go to them, if the schools, primary, secondary don't expose them to the different resources early on, then by the time they get to the collegiate level, it's not going to be a good look. They probably transferred into other type of disciplines, and we've lost them to STEM. So I think it's more of the institutions, the primary, secondary education, and especially the collegiate to reach out and develop and expose them to those different resources to catch them early.
If I may chime in, so I am. It's not until I get a chance to talk about this that I realized that, like, yes, this is it was a very unique opportunity. So actually the program that I was a part of, I really technically, according to, the way things were written up, I really wasn't supposed to be there. So because I had an older brother and my mother and my father were participating in the program on Saturdays, that meant that I was going to participate as well. My parents weren't going to find a babysitter for me. And it was just a matter of my interest in math and in those subjects, and being that young and being pretty much like a sponge and gravitating towards the information, that was a blessing. But otherwise, like Dr. Hall is stating, it's on the institutions. So just like we know NSF and other funding vehicles, they have the money. It's about who's going to take the time to create these programs. And then it's just a matter of the way that it's executed and implemented it. You want to make sure that it's going to be successful. So it's not that you have, and I believe, Dr. Hall, you've already stated this, that it's the institution's responsibility to bring it to the students or to those communities and to attract them. So it's not just like, oh, well, here's a pamphlet and good luck, but it's more of creating or setting up some type of infrastructure that says, you know what, this is something that I could, or I'm interested in this, or I had no idea that this is how this works. And we know that students want to either play video games, they want to do something in these different spaces, but they just don't know the ins and outs to knowing how it can get done or how to actually achieve this. So I think it's just a lot of times it's a blessing to be in the space. And then oftentimes it's even if it's kind of later in your matriculation through your educational journey, it's still, there's something that says, you know what, I'm able to do this, or I can do this despite the challenges or any issues that somebody might face.
Well, I think my colleagues literally took my answers from my head and, shared it. The three things that I was going to say, the things that they said, students aren't at that age, aren't in control of their own lives. They do not make their own decisions. Parents don't even let them pick out their own clothing. So, it's up to the parents and the teachers and the people who, pour into them to kind of help them out in that arena. The second thing was the second and third was going to be exposure and execution, just as my colleague said. Kids want to do what they see, people, they want to be a firefighter because they see the flashy truck. They want to be Superman because they saw that movie. They want to do the things that they see. So making it fun and engaging for them at a young age, I think, is the best thing you can do. And you never know what little fun activity that's going to spark that interest. So I say try as many things as possible, especially because at that young age, kids, not only are they hands-on learners, but as they grow, they're going to be different types of learners. So trying one type of activity for 5 years isn't going to reach everyone. Let's switch it up. Let's make it more interactive. And even finding activities that bring out specific different types of STEM careers. I did a Oobleck workshop with kids when I was in undergrad, and they absolutely loved it. And just to be able to relate that to, okay, this is chemical engineering, you know, these are things that you can do through this field, or everyone loves a spaghetti trust, you know, challenge. This is civil engineering. These are things that we do in this arena. So finding, you know, small activities that make a big impact, I think will help them at that young age.
Awesome. All right, that was a good take. So my next question is talking about inclusivity and trying to kind of close the leaky pipeline. We all know that if we're going to make a significant or transformative change, we have to start at the K-12 level. And just like you rightly said, we need to kind of have that early exposure for students so that they understand what engineering is at early age. Now, my question is, do we think that the curriculum is doing enough? The high school curriculum is trying to expose students to the fields of engineering, the fields of STEM. I want us to speak to that. Do we need to kind of look at the curriculum, make some changes, adapt it to different group of students, those for low-income families, those that are going through financial insecurity and things like that? Do we need to improve the curriculum? Do we need to bring the industry to have a take on the curriculum development and things like that?
I would answer absolutely. I got an opportunity to work with a company called Envision a couple of years ago, and the camp was college students teaching high school students different engineering disciplines. In the matter of 10 days, they learned about all different types of engineering topics and completed a mini capstone. Giving them something that was a challenge they were able to really grasp and, you know, really make it their own and learn through the process. I think that if we focus, yes, we get, you know, the math and the reading and the science and the social studies, those foundational courses, but finding a way to integrate careers into school will make students, I think, want to go to college more. The biggest thing we hear students say in college is, I'm taking these general education requirement classes and I'm never going to use them. I don't want to take, I don't know, I'm an English major and I have to take biology. You know, if we can find a way to incorporate the career core curriculum into high school or even earlier, I think that when they get to college, it'll be more normal. It'll be more, okay, I had to do these base level things. I have to do my core curriculum. I think it'll just be a cyclical process that will feel more natural.
Amir, I think you hit it on the head when you said interactive. So as a engineer and as a engineering professor, excuse me, but I'm sick of people telling students, oh, it's a lot of math, it's a lot of math. Sure, it's a lot of math, but if we show like an interactive side to it, when it comes to the complex math, it won't be as much of a hurdle because they'll know what the end goal is. So if I show you some interactive circuitry, show you how to work it, show you what the ins and outs of that is, when it comes time to do, and let's be clear, the calculus and all of the math comes in on the theoretical side. So if we're talking about actual working, we can do that. And then once I show you that, you're going to say, I have to do what to theoretically get it to work? Oh, okay. It may be a little challenging, but I know I can do that because I'm excited about the interactive portion. But it seems as if the curriculum, Dr. Effie, that you're speaking about is so focused on, especially with counselors, and I love my high school counselors, and you look at their grades. Oh, your grades aren't good for this discipline, they're not good for that discipline. You're gonna have to do a lot of math. You're gonna have to do, I really don't want anybody deterring students away from what could potentially be their career. I don't think as influencers, as as educators or as adults in that person's life, that's our place, right? So if they're having issues and you're as a professional can see that they're having issues in these particular areas, this is the time to introduce different resources. This is the time to recommend to other faculty members or whatever, what can we do to adjust the curriculum for our struggling students? What can we do? Because you can teach students, especially at younger primary ages, you can teach students anything. You know, you can have some 2-year-olds that are multiple bilingual or speaking multiple languages, what I'm trying to say. So you can teach students anything. We just have to have the curriculum and the foundation to do that. And we need to revamp it to where we're not just focused on one end of it when there's a totally different side of it, the interactive portion that I spoke about, piggybacking off of Ms. Camara.
And if I may chime in, and I agree with both panelists. One other thing that I would say that a modification needs to occur is in standardized testing. So it's like a lot of students or a lot of teachers now are just focused on their students passing these tests. And we're not looking at, you know, what is the importance of this math or of this, I'll just say like a scientific equation. What are we really trying to do here? What are we trying to achieve? And then I also think from a problem solving skills, those are now watered down. It's more of like, we just depend on either our calculators or our cell phone to figure out, or even talking to Alexa to figure out, you know, what's the answer to something, as opposed to actually doing it, you know, like by hand, at least the way that I had to do it coming up. But it's just more of the different mediums and practicality of executing these skills in order to be the successful professionals that they can be. So regardless of your race, regardless of your socioeconomic background, if you really have it in you, and if you really put your mind and heart to doing whatever the goal or objective is, it really can be done. It can be achieved. And I agree with Dr. Hall in saying, like, we need to stop saying that math is so hard. How about you change the way you teach the math, and make it more practical for students, and stop using hardness as a crutch to get around what it actually takes to explain and figure out different ways, be inventive in how we go about teaching engineering to students.
Awesome.
Can I add one thing?
Yes, please.
So I teach part-time mathematics at Prince George's Community College. And so I'm teaching lower level math to, you know, all different types of people. And that's one thing that's worked for me, figuring out how to relate what I'm teaching, especially in my developmental class, figuring out how to relate those basic concepts to something that we deal with every day. On the first day of class, I asked every student, what is one thing you like about math? What's one thing you hate about math? Most don't have anything they like, but everyone says math's just hard. I don't like it. It doesn't come easy. And by the end of the semester, I asked them again, you know, what are some things you like about math? And they're able to name things that we've gone over. I love teaching discounts because I talk about it as shopping math. You know, that's how I shop in my head, is doing discounts. That's the same way I teach it to my students. So just finding ways to relate small pieces of information to other people will make them so much more interested. That was my 2 cents to add.
And that's
Awesome.
a good 2 cents, because there are so many different ways to learn. Some people are visual. Some people need that pictorial graph or something to explain a situation. Some people can take a word problem and complete it. So that's a very good point, Camara.
All right, thank you. Thank you for that important discussion. So recently, the US Department of Labor reported that the economy added millions of jobs. I want us to focus on the college level because there is a disparity between that information and what is happening in our colleges. What we see is that a lot of students are leaving the engineering or the STEM field. So the question I want to ask the panel is, how do we increase those that are coming into the field? How can we ensure that they are not leaving? I would want us to take that question, and of course, then we can then talk about the importance of career fair and internship to expose students to what is happening in the industry. So the first question is, how can we ensure that students are not leaving the field so that we can have a lot of them, taking up these jobs that the Department of Labor reported about?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the statistic? The Department of Labor, they're saying that just overall,
that about 2.1 million jobs were added recently. That's after the pandemic. That's in 2022.
That is cute.
So especially in the technology field. So in the IT field, there has been.
They particularly stated some of those jobs were in STEM?
Yes.
Good grief, who collected that information?
So I guess I want to ask a question. So are we saying artificial intelligence and like that's coming in to take the jobs and students are no longer interested in STEM? Is that what the Department of Labor is hinting at here?
So what they're hinting at is there are a lot of job openings in cybersecurity, for example, in machine learning, also even data analysis. And we need to start developing students to get into those areas so that they can further develop the economy. These are jobs that a lot of jobs were open that were not there pre-pandemic. Now that we have a lot of new jobs in the IT area, the Department of Labor is asking, can we try to focus on these new areas like machine learning? How can we bring machine learning to civil engineering? How can we bring AI and so on? But for us who are professors, who are faculty in our colleges, we see that students are even leaving the pipeline even before they got to sit in the classroom where they will be taught all these, new areas.
So I'm sorry, Dr. Effie, what was the question? How we can prevent them from leaving the pipeline?
Yes.
I almost want to sit this one out because it's a little personal, but.
Well, then your second question, I think, is kind of the answer to the first.
Yeah.
You said you want to talk about the importance of internships and career fairs. I think that if undergraduate institutions did more to help students get internships, then they would get that exposure and actually start learning those things on the job. A lot of what we learn in undergrad or in school in general is theory-based, and we don't do a lot of what we learn the same way we do in our careers. So I think that if institutions helped with getting internships and even maybe not only help but mandate it. I know that some people in their school, it was mandated that they had an internship before they graduated, or did things like took their FE before they graduated. It helped set them up for work after school. So just giving that extra hand or push and doing that, because I think that would be the best way to make me want to, work more, stay in the field.
I'm concerned because, and you guys can correct me if I'm incorrect, but I believe it's Georgia. I want to say Georgia University, Georgia Tech University. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but that particular institution, the pipeline of students that it is producing is grand. they are producing the students to fill these jobs that they say are available. So there shouldn't be any shortage on valuable candidates to fulfill these positions. That's one. But two, I think we need to go back. If we're talking about students aren't even matriculating because they're dropping out prior to that, that's something that we kind of already discussed. Like, we need to understand, why are they leaving? Is it personal? Is it the institution? Is it the pedagogy of the faculty? What's keeping them from staying in the program? And to what we talked about earlier, having to discover different ways to reach the students. And as a faculty, and I'm not tenured, so I can't even imagine having, the most I've taught is maybe 12 hours a semester. So I can't even imagine what a tenure is having to teach and that teaching load, what that looks like. But we're going to have to go a little step further. If you can teach half of your class one way, then you lose the other half. As a faculty, you're going to have to reapproach that, right? So we have to kind of determine and do our own statistics at our own schools to understand why we're losing these students prior to them completing the program. But I believe, again, back to the Department of Labor, that if these jobs really do exist, there are more than enough viable candidates out there to fill those jobs. I think it's just a matter of them on that selection criteria. And I know that's not part of the discussion, so I won't get into that. But yes, that selection criteria needs to be re-examined in order to get quality candidates in there, because they're out there now. Do they meet that normal criteria that I've seen on job postings? No. Doesn't mean they can't do the job though. And this is what we need to start understanding. It's not even about relaxing the evaluation criteria. It's just about making it make sense, as the young people like to say, make it make sense.
And also, so in the computer science space, like all the topics that you mentioned about data analytics, machine learning, artificial intelligence, those are topics that are definitely explored through, well, either I guess as an undergraduate in your electives, but I'm hoping and I pray that at least for all HBCUs, there's a curriculum reassessment or adjustment to look at where are our systems currently in terms of the professional realm, and then where do we need to train our students to be by the time they graduate? So we're not teaching archaic languages, if you will, so that they have relevant skills once they graduate. So from that, and thinking about the capstone project that Camara, I believe you talked about this earlier, but even from a senior project, or not even senior project for undergraduates, let's just even say maybe sophomore project or colloquium style course. If there's like interdisciplinary study where engineers and computer scientists are working together so that they can see how does civil engineering work, and then what does it look like to marry or to bridge artificial intelligence into this space or this discipline, and then what's the innovation that can come out from us working together on these types of projects. And then I know maybe from undergraduate research, there's avenues or possibilities for that type of partnership or joint working together with one another to try to achieve those types of projects. But again, if you don't have the resources, if you don't have the tenured professors or even non-tenured professors like lecturers who understand these different disciplines, then your students are at a disadvantage. And so if they're not passing, then I can see why they would leave engineering and go to something that is easier for them to grasp so they can get the degree and not be in a whole lot of debt once they graduate. So it's not all on the students, and I believe we've already stated that, but there's a lot of revamp that needs to actually happen. And then from the aspect of internships, so companies have a lot of money. Companies have a lot of money, whether or not they pay their employees what they deserve, they do have a lot of money. And so if the university even put some type of program in place so that they can get funding from these corporations, or even for them maybe to, like Google, or I don't know if I should name drop companies, but different companies to come in and maybe be a visiting professor to give students, undergraduate students, exposure to these different skill sets that they'll need in order to work for these companies. That's another option. And then in terms of the internships, creating that pipeline or that bridge for students to be able to support and work for these different companies while they're pursuing their Bachelor of Science or advanced degrees is another option that should be pursued.
Yeah, thank you. I think I agree with what you all said. Janelle, you mentioned that there has to be presence of companies at the institutions. That's very important. That's one of the struggles that HBCUs have in terms of having that presence, not just career fair, but even coming for capstone presentations, even to just have a discussion with students and group discussion and things like that. I think is very important, and I like your take on that. So thank you guys. I think this will be the last question. So being women engineers, I know it's maybe a little bit tough. I would like to hear from you guys, but what we noted from our recent research is that just less than 5% of women are in the STEM workforce due to a number of reasons. So I want to ask this question, are there challenges, of course, peculiar to women that you guys can share with the audience, and how you were able to surmount those since you become part of this engineering family? Dr. Hall?
I don't know if my other panelists have children yet. I don't think they do. I think that's usually our largest challenge as women in any industry and having any career. When you talk about family in 2022, there's still not any real cultural understanding of how that's going to, I guess, transpire. There's, you have these few places that have developed different programs and things like that to support families, women in careers with children, but for the most part, it's just not a cultural norm yet, and I'm not too sure why. And I think that's another reason why we have very few women in engineering, because for the most part, especially when I first started engineering, I was working crazy hours at night, and yeah, it was really tough. So, if you don't have a real support system, what are you going to do? You have to do something different to support your family. So I think that's one of them. Oh, another thing that I kind of found challenging, well, I won't say it was challenging because I was raised by my father. So I've always kind of been a tomboy, don't take any type of stuff type person, but I found myself in situations where I was having to prove that it was okay to be there, that I did deserve to be there. And I didn't care that I had to do that, because eventually it was going to come out, because I had to show that I could do the job, right? That was an expectation for me to do the job. So you would see that I deserved to be there. And, you know, me and my personality, I kind of waved it a little, that flag a little higher. Yes, I definitely deserve to be here. Now you see, and I think that's a challenge that women and women of color, I think we're still, I don't know if it's just women of color, but women period are still facing that, especially in male dominant type industry disciplines, in engineering specifically. Like I said, I was the only woman in my office, a woman engineer. And so, yeah, and it was in Austin, Texas. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Austin, but they have a good old boy system in Austin. And so, you know, and I love my country boys, but they were country, and they, yeah, girl, I was a girl. And it's like, my name is Janne, and I'm a lady. I'm not a girl, but you know, those type of terms that they use, it's a way to try to belittle you without, you know, putting it in your face. But you know, those type of things were done. It wasn't really a challenge to me again, but I could see it being challenging, especially for some younger females, and just not exposed to, like I said, being raised by my dad, that masculinity, it just really prepared me for those type of situations.
Okay. So definitely I would say that it's a boys club, you know. We don't have the space, I think, to be women in the field. It's because it's a boys club, I think that we're expected to take the femininity out of everything that we do professionally. And because of that, I think that, I mean, if you take a man's masculinity away from him, he's gonna feel uncomfortable. So because that femininity is taken away from us in a professional sense, we don't feel as comfortable to maybe speak up or ask questions or this or that, because it's so male dominated. And then just, I think, having support from each other. I think that we feel like everything we're going through it alone. And because we're not having the conversations, because we don't want to feel like, if I say this, everyone's going to look at me differently. If I share that I feel this, everyone's going to look at me differently. Just having kind of a safe space to kind of express, because, you know, women, they say, are more emotional, express the things that we're feeling, even if that's just amongst us women. So one thing that I did to kind of help myself was surround myself with a lot of different women in STEM, whether they were, you know, whether they preceded me or, you know, succeeded me in the different organizations and things I was a part of. Just creating a safe space. Like, you know, if you had a bad day because this was hard and it stressed you out, my mentee will call me and she'll cry. She's like, look, I need a safe space. I just need to cry and vent for a minute. And I'll do the same with her, because, you know, sometimes we just need that. So I think that, yeah, that's my 2 cents.
So I would say from the professional space that are spaces that I've been a part of, what I tried to focus on was the mission or the work, and showing that it didn't matter if I'm working on a team with all males and I'm leading them as the female or as the lady, it's gonna get done and we're gonna do a good job. But there, I guess from sports, so kind of having the camaraderie of other athletes, kind of maybe that may have prepared me early on. But I guess that still doesn't even really kind of touch that space in the sense of if you're on an all girls team, that doesn't mean anything when it comes to working on a team with girls. And so like Dr. Hall, like you mentioned your father. Yes. So having my father and my brother, it's kind of like, these are the rules. Just figure it out. Just make it work. So that's one part of it. And then having a strong face while you're doing whatever you have to do, but then having that time of where you can decompress, process, and really figure out, is whatever I experienced in these 8 hours, this 40 hours during this week, did I experience it because I'm a woman or because I'm a female? And now, like you're trying to figure out, why did you deal with the craziness you may have dealt with? Or is it just what's going on with the job and everybody's experiencing it? So listening to having that safe space of where you can talk to someone else, I really believe my safe space was my mom. But my mom isn't an engineer, but she knows what she's dealt with and experienced, while she has been working. So, it's kind of having a point of reason. It is what I'm experiencing just a part of what comes to, being in the professional space? Or, do we really have something else going on here? But I think at the end of the day, once you realize that, or for me, once I realized that if I'm gonna be an engineer and if I'm gonna, pursue this line of work, this is not normal for everyone, but you're just gonna have to deal with it. And while you're dealing with it, make it better for the next person or the next, for me, Black female or female who's gonna come through. Whatever I can do to make it a little bit better, a little bit easier for them, then I'm more than willing to. But at the end of the day, if I can just shift my focus and attention to the mission and making sure that we're being productive there, then I feel like my vision or the way that I'm looking at it or approaching the problem or the goal is the right way to go. At least that's been my course of action.
All right. I think we are at the end of the session. But before I have Dr. Susan take over, I want to ask one more question. Do you have advice for students? These are tough times. We're just coming out of the pandemic. Do you have advice for students that are going through financial challenges and possibly having that self-esteem that they will not be able to transition into the industry? So what's your advice in terms of navigating this period, these tough times?
I can start. So I guess advice for, someone in high school or college, don't prove people wrong, don't give up on your dreams or your goals just because someone tells you this is going to be too hard for you. You are the best advocate or the best coach for yourself. If it's something you want to do, put your mind to it and keep pushing. Yes, it won't be easy. It'll be a roller coaster. Things will be up, things will be down, but it's going to be worth it in the end. And then in terms of transition into the workforce, like I said before, a lot of things we learn are very much so theory based. Practical, work environment is way different. And as someone so I started my new position this summer, and just transitioning from, I was in school and now I'm working. People, when you get hired, people want to see you succeed. So the people who work with you and around you, hopefully you have great leadership, are going to want to help you succeed to a point where they're going to help you, guide you, answer your questions. It's okay if you don't know certain things. That's what an entry-level position is for. It's to teach you, you know, things that you're going to do to make you a successful mid-level and senior level engineer.
Dr. Hall?
When I first graduated from college, me and my peers had this wonderful idea that we were going to be able to accept or get jobs with a certain starting salary. We're going to have control over that, where we're going to work, what salary we're going to accept. We weren't accepting anything lower than this number. And when I got my first offer, I took it because you have zero control over that. So, you know, one thing that I tell my students, especially when we're in the laboratory, part of being an engineer is learning to troubleshoot. So if we're constructing circuits and it doesn't work the initial time, it's okay, because working with hardware is no guarantee. So same thing with your jobs. When you go out looking for a job, sometimes you may have to take what's there to get your foot in the door, to get started. And that's okay. That's okay. Just continue to work hard and stay the course. And just like you push through getting your degree, you can push through getting the job that you eventually want. So it just takes time.
Janelle?
Yes, and I'd say be willing to be flexible. And maybe that's a summary of what you both have already stated. But in terms of the job, the dream job that you might have, or where you really want to work, I'm not going to say just lower your standards. Don't do that. But you never know who you're going to meet, and you never know how others perceive you while you're doing whatever job you're doing. And you don't know who knows, like that person maybe at your dream company, you know, they might be able to introduce you to somebody, and you never know, you could be doing that thing the very thing that you want to actually do. But I will state that while yes, we're all interested in, well, I don't say all, but we do want to be in the professional workforce. Also be flexible in the sense of, if you have a dream of starting your own business, write out those dreams and see what it would take for you to start your own business on the side. I'm not saying just completely stop what you're doing, like your main source of income, but you never know what your ideas could birth into the future, because you could be, you know, you could have the next app that could take off much further than some of these apps that we're using now. So just be willing to really push past what's the traditional norms of, you know, just doing your 9 to 5 and then, you know, just hanging out for the rest of the day. No, figure out, you know, what is it that really excites you if you don't know that yet. And then in terms of pursuing an advanced degree, if you're a minority, and I'm gonna say this, you should not have to pay for a degree in the STEM field when the statistics are so low in terms of minorities. Please do not go into debt pursuing a STEM degree for an advanced degree. That should not be the situation or the case. But definitely know that if we are panelists here, know that there is a blessing in store for you to pursue your dreams. And I'm just gonna just leave it as plainly as I can right there.